Okay, so on page 919, the first thing that I want to highlight is that each of these say outline the design. They're not saying describe the design, they're just saying outline it, which means we don't have to go through and write a million bullet points or a million sentences. We can just draw a picture, draw a diagram, and move on to the next one. So the setup is a low-carb diet or a low-fat diet effective for long-term weight loss? So they're comparing the two. Is low-carb better or low-fat better? We're going to set up an experiment to compare these two diet plans with a control group that only gets provided a brochure about healthy eating. 90 volunteers agree to participate. Outline a completely randomized design. So the easiest completely randomized design, for me at least, is 2-HAT. So first, let's make sure that we understand exactly what we're doing. We have 90 volunteers. We have 3 treatment groups that they need to be divided between. So one treatment group is the low-carb diet. One treatment group is the low-fat diet. And the control group is the brochure. So 3 treatments. Some people will eat low-carb, some people will eat low-fat, some people will just read a brochure and hopefully they'll make better choices. How many will be in each treatment? If we have 90 volunteers, we got to divide them into the 3 groups. How many will we have? 30. So how am I going to do this? I personally, to make sure that I randomly assign these, I'm going to do 2-HAT method, and I'm just going to draw my hats. I'm not going to write anything out. I'm literally just going to draw my hats like I did in our first example. One hat's going to be my volunteers. One hat will be my treatments. In my volunteer hat, I'm going to put 90 names. In my treatment hat, I'm going to put 30 slips of paper that have LC on them. 30 slips of paper that have LF. And 30 slips of paper that have a B. I'm going to shake each hat. Shake. Pull one out of each. Match them together. Do that until all of my volunteers are assigned. So easiest, quickest way. All the volunteers go into the same hat. We can get away with just doing this because it says outline. If it said describe, we would have to be writing things down. You ready for the block? So it starts the same, 90 volunteers. But I have to decide on a variable that I think will affect weight loss. I think your age affects your weight loss. I think that your height affects your weight loss. I think that what probably affects the weight loss the most, though, is your gender. Men lose weight faster than women because they have more body mass, muscle mass to burn calories. So I am going to block by gender. I'm going to put the females in a group and the males in a group. And just to make our lives easier, I'm going to assume that there are 45 females and 45 males. Where did I get that? 90 divided by 2. Then, within each block, I will do what I did up here. Assign all of the females to one of the 3 treatments. Assign all the males to one of the 3 treatments. Okay, 45 divided into 3 groups. What's that? 45 divided by 3. Good, 15. So we're going to have 15 in this group, 15, 15, 15, 15, 15. Then after they've done their program, you just compare the women against each other. So for the women, which diet led them to lose the most weight? Then you compare the men. For the men, which diet worked the best? Then you would combine, compare, conclude. So I'm going to add a little bit on to this picture. So when you do a block design, you want to explicitly say what you're blocking by. So block by gender. And then they usually want you to briefly describe why. Well, we're going to block by gender because we know it has an effect on weight loss. Men have more muscle to burn calories than women do. You don't have to write a lot about it. You can just briefly say, I'm going to block by gender because I know it affects weight loss. If you know why, then write that. Okay, then I'm going to use 2 hat method to assign the females. And I'm just going to draw 2 little hats. Oh, these hats are not a win. That's okay though. I bet you I have a lot of boys that do this and are like, lady, could we spend less time drawing the hats, please? I'm sure of it, Alyssa. I'm sure of it. One of the hats is the females. So 45 names will go in the hat. The other one's the treatments. So 15 LC, 15 LF, 15 B. Shaky shake, pull one out. Then, luckily, for the last one, we can just say repeat for the males. So if you are pressed for time on your exam, you do this. You just outline it. Add as much as you can, but just outline it. Don't worry about writing full sentences and making it sound nice. Make bullet points, draw pictures, and then go to the next problem. Okay, we got one more. One last design. So we have the most basic, completely randomized. We have a block design, which is better than this. And now we're going to do the most complicated design, which we're going to do a paired design. Before I forget, this is not the best option because what if you end up with a bunch of the males in the low carb group? You could end up getting 20 males in the low carb group and 25 males in the brochure group, and you wouldn't know if these people lost weight because they were males or if this group lost more weight because they were male or because of the actual diet. So this is not the best option unless all of these volunteers are homogeneous, like very, very similar. Does that make sense? Okay. Well, we have two options for matched pairs. We can put two people together and then each of them gets a different treatment, or we can have them do all the treatments. We have to have them do this one. And the reason why is because this works for two treatments. Putting them in a group of two and then splitting them out to the treatments works for two treatments. We have 3 treatments. So we're going to choose the one where each subject will do the treatments, all of the treatments. So we start by saying each subject will do all 3 treatments. So in parentheses, I just want to discuss very quickly what this will block. This will block gender, because I'm comparing each subject to themselves. I'm not comparing one subject to another subject. I'm looking at one person and saying, for this one person, what diet was the best? This would block age. This blocks starting weight. Those are the 3 that I can think of off the top of my head, and there's probably more. That's why this design is more complicated than the other ones, because it blocks a bunch of variables that affect weight loss. And it does that by just comparing one subject to themselves. So each subject's going to do all of the treatments. We are going to randomize the order of the treatments. So how am I going to do that? 1, I'm going to use hat method. Use the 2 hat method from part A. This will assign them to their first treatment. So use the 2 hat method from part A to assign each subject their first treatment. The subjects assigned to low carb first will do low fat second and brochure last. How did I determine that? I'm just going in the order that we did in all these other problems. So in all of these, I always listed LC first. Then my last bullet point, or my last thing, is similarly okay, if you started with low fat, if we just follow the same order, which would they do next? Low fat, then. Look at your order here. LC, LF, B. So which one comes next? B. Then LC. So I'm literally assigning them in this order. If you did low fat first, then you would do brochure, then you would do low carb. If you were low carb first, then you did low fat, then you did brochure. So if you're brochure first, you would do low carb, then low fat. So you 2-hat method to assign the first group and then have them just go in the order that they were listed for the next two. At the end, you just compare each person's experience. So you say, okay, for subject 1, which worked the best? For subject 2, which one worked the best? And then at the end, you compare, combine your results, make a conclusion. So I'm going to add that in with some asterisks, and then we're done. So at the end of each one, even when it's an outline, you can just briefly say at the end, compare, combine, conclude. So in the first one, you're comparing the 3 treatments against each other, and that's it. Which group lost the most? The low carb, the low fat, or the brochure? In the second one, you are looking at the genders. So for each gender, which method lost the most? And then for the last one, you're looking at every experimental unit and asking which method resulted in the most weight loss. So you won't know what you know or don't know until you practice it. So this check for understanding is the longest. There are 4 questions, and all of them, well, the last 3 say describe your design. So this is really good practice for you to actually write out how you would assign. And like I've said previously, if you want to type it up, that's fine. So like today, I'm going to post the solutions for 906, just basic random design. And I typed mine up, all of them, and then just taped them in here, because I did both ways so that I could show you what the difference is. So if you want to do that for these problems, you can. We're okay? Okay. That's it. That's our last lesson.